Stage 1 landing burn.
10 seconds out. We may see a video cut out here.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
All right, and there you can see we've landed first stage on our drone ship. Just read the instructions. This marks our 76th recovery of an orbital class rocket and the 6th recovery for this particular booster.
Seco.
And we've had second engine cut off 1.
Also signal stage 2 from the Cape as expected.
And we confirmed good orbit. All right, now stage 2 is going to coast for this orbit in the next 35 minutes or so. While that happens, take a look at this animation showcasing where we are in the
Looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 6:01 a.m. Eastern Time launch from historic 39A launch pad at Kennedy Space Center. My name is Kate Tice, a senior certification engineer here at SpaceX, joining you from our headquarters in Hawthorne, California. You're watching a live webcast for our 22nd Starlink mission and our 8th launch of 2021. Starlink is a constellation of satellites that can provide high-speed, low-latency internet all over the globe, particularly in remote areas where connectivity is limited or completely unavailable. Starlink is now delivering initial beta service both domestically and internationally. At the moment, our beta service is available in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and as of this week, we've expanded our beta service coverage area to include Western Germany and the South Island of New Zealand. As we launch more satellites, install more ground stations, and improve our networking software, data speed, latency, and uptime will all improve dramatically. And with every Starlink launch, we get closer to our goal of near global coverage of the populated world later this year. Today's Starlink launch is particularly special as this is the first time that we are flying a Falcon 9 rocket for the 9th, about T+1 hour into the mission. And lastly, our Starlink satellites are safely enclosed inside of that payload fairing that you see there. It's 5 meters or 17 feet in diameter, and that structure is located, of course, at the very top of the rocket. It protects the payload from aerothermal loads, heating, and contamination during ascent. And once we reach the vacuum of space, we'll jettison the fairing as the second stage will continue on its journey to orbit. Today will be the second flight for this fairing. It first supported our Transporter 1 mission earlier this year. We'll be attempting to recover it by retrieving each half from the water with our recovery vessels Go Searcher and Go Navigator. As for weather, things are looking great. We have a 90% favorable forecast for this morning. With that, the vehicle, satellites, weather, and range are all looking good for an on-time liftoff just 6.5 minutes from now. At this point, we're coming up to the T-5 minute mark, and Falcon 9 is moving into the final stages of our countdown. We're waiting for the transporter erector, or TE, to retract. That is the white painted structure that you see there next to the vehicle. First, the TE clamps will open, and then the transporter erector will begin to retract away from the rocket slightly. And at T0, hydraulics will pull the TE further away from Falcon 9 as it lifts off. That TE retraction will begin with the clamp arms beginning to open. That takes about 15 seconds for them to fully open. And then about 30 seconds later, we'll see the strong back retract. And that takes about 25 seconds for it to retract just a couple degrees away from the vehicle. The TE provides liquids, gases, electrical connections to the second stage. There we can see those clamps beginning to release. The TE provides liquids, gases, electrical connections to the second stage, as well as air conditioning to the payload fairing. And if you listen closely, you might be able to hear the hiss and pop of pressure venting from the rocket and plumbing in the TE. The first and second stages are nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Super chilled liquid oxygen is our propellant oxidizer, and it's that super chilled LOX that is creating the white clouds that you see around the vehicle. That occurs when the super chilled liquid oxygen turns into its gaseous state when it's exposed to the warmer ambient air around the vehicle. The first stage will be completing its prop loading here in just a couple of seconds at T-minus 3 minutes. And second stage wraps up its prop loading at T-minus 2 minutes.
Pogo, bleed verification.
Once we finish loading liquid oxygen at T-minus 2 minutes, the
Gas launch closeouts.
At T-minus 1 minute, we will hear the call out that Falcon 9 is in startup. Again, this means that the flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. At that point in time, the first and second stages will also begin to pressurize for launch.
Falcon 9's in startup.
All right, there we heard it. The onboard flight computers have taken over the launch countdown as Falcon 9 is now in startup.
Falcon 9, Starlink, LDs go for launch.
Okay, there we heard our launch director give the final go for launch. As we approach the T-minus 30 second mark, all systems are go for launch. Let's listen in to terminal count and watch as Falcon 9 takes our stack of Starlink satellites into orbit.
T-minus 15 seconds.
Falcon 9's configured for flight.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff.
Vehicle's pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion's nominal.
As you can see, Falcon 9 has successfully
telemetry nominal.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center, carrying our stack of Starlink satellites to orbit. We're going to throttle the 9 Merlin engines down in preparation for max Q,
Vehicle supersonic.
or maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is the largest structural load that the vehicle will see during ascent, so slowing it down a little bit will help the vehicle pass through that short period.
Max Q.
And there we heard the call out for max Q. Now, in about a minute, we're going to have 3 events happen in quick succession, back to back. The first one is main engine cutoff, or MECO. This is where all 9 of those M1D engines are going to shut off, and that'll help slow the vehicle down in preparation stage, along with the Starlink satellites into orbit. And main engine cutoff will be coming up in 10 seconds. Everything continues to look nominal there with that vehicle trajectory.
And MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
All right. right, there on your screen,
Ignition and throttle up complete.
as the MVAC nozzle begins to develop that bright glow, we can see that all three events, like I said, quick succession. On the left-hand side of your screen, we have the first stage. In the background behind the first stage, I absolutely love this view. We got some night lights of the Space Coast behind it. The first stage is actually...
Fairing separation confirmed.
There we heard the call out for fairing sep, and we can see that stack of Starlink satellites there. Great views. Everything looks nominal there with our second stage. As it heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, first stage is going to execute 2 burns in order to make its way back to Earth. If you look closely, you can see your dishy, and you can get connected
Stage
to...
1 FTS is saved.
You can get connected to the internet in a matter of minutes.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there we can see on your screen startup of that first of 2 burns, the entry burn. This lasts 20 seconds. As I mentioned earlier, we have reignited 3 of the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the first stage vehicle.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
And shutdown of those 3 engines. So the reason we perform the entry burn is we want to slow the first stage down as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. As you can tell by the energy there on the grid fins, we can see that it's going pretty fast, and we want to slow the velocity down as it re-enters the atmosphere. Second stage and our Starlink satellites.
Also signal stage 1 Canaveral expected.
Stage 1 landing burn.
So we heard the call out that the landing burn for stage 1 has begun. We can start to see the plume there on our drone ship cam on the left-hand side of your screen. Hopefully we'll be able to maintain video signal through landing.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Okay, the landing legs are out.
Terminal guidance.
Unfortunately, it looks like we weren't able to maintain that video signal. We'll bring that back to you as soon as we can, as well as a status update on that landing. Everything continues to look good.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
Everything continues to look good there with second stage.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
All right, we heard it. We couldn't see it, but we did hear verbal confirmation that we had a successful landing of that booster, marking our 70.
Also signal stage 2 from the Cape as expected.
This marks our 77th successful recovery of an orbital class rocket, and the 9th landing of this particular booster. Like I mentioned before, this is the first time that we've launched and landed a Falcon 9 first stage 9 times.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And just like that, we heard confirmation of a good orbit. So at this point, stage 2 is going to coast for a little bit, actually for the next 35 minutes or so. So hang tight. We'll see you back here at T plus 45 minutes for a second stage relay.